And we are continuing to break down what yesterday's gubernatorial results mean for voters across the Garden State and coalitions that helped shape the outcome. Joining us now is Mary Thomas. She is CEO of Faith and Freedom Coalition. Her organization works to educate and mobilize people of faith to make their voices heard on the issues that matter most, from family and community to faith-based values and civic engagement. Mary, it's good to see you. Welcome.
Hi, thank you, Laura and Ken. It's great to be here.
So, did the candidate who won last night, is that candidate a candidate that is more popular with community and faith-based values?
No, she is not. I think what we saw yesterday was there's a structural advantage for Democrats in New Jersey and a registration advantage about 860,000. So we unfortunately, faith-based voters and the candidate that aligned most with faith values, they were not able to overcome that structural advantage this time.
Now we saw last year that many of the Latino voters in some of the larger urban centers of New Jersey went for Trump, but did we see sort of a backslide back to the Democrat candidate this year in this off-year election?
Yeah, I think what we're seeing, absolutely, Ken, as you said, it is that all Americans really are having a tough time with cost of living, just the economy. It's really been tough for everyone, and working families and middle class particularly. So I think we saw a reflection of that within the Hispanic community. We haven't seen the exact, breakdown of where Hispanic voters fell, but overall, looking at the exit polls, it's clear that the economy was a big, big issue. And our side was not able to message well enough on that and what we would do to improve people's lives. And that really is what made the difference here.
Yeah, well, can you talk just a little bit about the issues that you heard from local faith leaders leading up to the elections, and what concerns were they talking about, and how did that resonate, through the candidates, and what voters ultimately decided?
Yeah, so the concerns that we heard were concerns about their children in schools and, being able to get their kids prepared for, having a successful life. But overwhelmingly, the number one concern was the economy, being able to provide for their families, being able to have, being able to afford a house and transportation to get to work, the energy costs. That really was a big driver of what we were seeing, even within the faith-based community, that, if you can't make your everyday expenses, then sometimes some of the other issues fall to the background.
Yeah, I want to follow up on something you talked about when it comes to education, because a lot of what Mikey Sherrill was talking about, LGBTQ, what is taught in the schools, and Jack Tittarelli was, talking about how, he didn't want that. One of the things, I have children, and some had some learning challenges, and as I was struggling to find a good place for them, somebody told me, Laura, go faith-based. Finds a faith-based education. And it isn't always about the faith. My daughter attended an all-girls Catholic school. It wasn't about the faith. It was about how their agenda was more focused on the fundamentals, from handwriting to making sure that you have that solid foundation. So can you talk a little bit about, how faith and education, how those two kind of go hand in hand, and how those students oftentimes are better prepared after high school and they have more options?
Yeah, no, I think you're exactly correct. We've seen with Catholic schools and many faith-based schools, if you look at the data, they are outperforming the public schools. And part of the reason, as you said, is because they are actually focused on teaching the basics, reading, writing, math, the things that we focused on when we were younger and in school. And unfortunately, many of our public schools have gone away from that and have been talking about social issues instead. I don't think that's the way to go. I have worked with a great faith-based school in Nevada, and they have gotten their kids in a very impoverished area of Nevada. They have gotten their kids 2 grade levels ahead. So they're doing remarkable things. And there are many, many more churches out there that want to start schools. And that's one of the things that we're looking at working to help pastors and churches build schools in their churches so that parents have more options.
Yeah, when you get some school districts that are so woke in this country that they say things like math is racist, and there were several school districts, we did this story a couple of months ago, where they said that traditional math is racist, that if a kid says 2 plus 2 is 9 and they could explain how they got there, that's acceptable. Well, that may be acceptable in somebody's insane mind, but how does that help a child when they get out in the real world and they're working for a CPA firm if they say, well, no, I was taught that 2 and 2 is 9? This kind of craziness does not help unify the country.
No, absolutely. I mean, my husband and I experienced it ourselves with our son, who's 12 years old, but it was a couple years ago. My husband is white. I am not. And basically, what his school was about to implement was DEI. And they were, I said, we had a conversation with the headmaster. You're basically saying that one side of his family, the white side, they're oppressors, right? And then the brown side, like me, we can't do anything. Right. And what good is that teaching children that? And it's not the truth. My parents came to this country in 1972. They built a business, a medical practice from the ground up. They succeeded. Everyone has an opportunity in the United States. We should not be telling children of any race that they're disadvantaged or that they're oppressors.
Now, you got me. You just described my life. I'm Argentinian Italian, so I just fight in my own head. But we appreciate you. Mary Thomas, CEO of the Faith and Freedom Coalition. It is always a pleasure to have you on. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thanks. Great to be here.
You bet.